to the core marketing side of this session, where we're going to look on how we build on the foundations. Obviously, we did a foundational level session yesterday, and just to recap on that, we did a kind of strategy stage deep dive, which we won't go into today. We do have the same kind of flywheel that we went through yesterday, but we'll just touch on that on a top level point of view. Obviously, I think, as Sav's mentioned, we will share the recordings from yesterday and the 2 sessions today, so you've got the full breadth and the full mix of everything we went through. The 3 sessions were intended to be the fundamentals, the foundational pieces of work, so creating that very, very basic strategy, identifying which channels you want to use, and then just putting together really tactical plans to execute across organic, paid, email, that sort of stuff. So we went through the strategy, we went through the channel mix, we gave some recommendations in terms of what channels we should use when we're looking to speak to people around Microsoft 365 for Business, specifically around premium. We went through some benchmark stats, and then there was some templates in there as well, which we just kind of showed us as how to take a basic plan to market. So when you're thinking about putting together that first go-to-market plan around premium, what tactical things you just need to consider for kind of who's going to be responsible for the plan, any key milestones, budget, etc. So the agenda for today is this. We're going to go through just a top level, the importance of strategy, and we're going to include that in each of the presentations, yesterday and the 2 today. We're going to focus the crux and the bulk of this presentation is going to be around how we layer up that very, very foundational work. We've got some go-to-market examples, which we showed yesterday, and then just a recap on some of those templates, which can be used across multiple stages. If you've got any questions as we go through, please feel free to type in the chat, put your hands up. We are happy to answer them as we go through, or we can wait till the end. We can work in either way. So we'll get started then. Again, this is exactly the same slide as yesterday. So why should we create a go-to-market strategy? Ultimately, it keeps us focused. It keeps us working towards a set of objectives that we've mapped out, and it gives us a baseline for how we're going to get there. So we might decide that we want to create 10 new opportunities. Okay, well, how do we actually get those opportunities? We've got to think about the channels we're going to use, what that messaging is going to be, who exactly it is we're going to speak to, and then it also holds individuals and teams accountable as well. Obviously, I'm not too sure how big your organizations are. You may have one person responsible for sales and marketing. You might have a marketing executive. It might be the MD, CEO, or sales director or such that holds that responsibility, but it just maps out who is going to be responsible for what part, and then just keeps everyone focused. We have found that without structure, it's just very, very difficult to estimate, predict, or to actually achieve results. So even by putting together a very, very tactical plan, we can just be so focused, so much more focused in getting some end results. And then this is the wheel that we went through yesterday. So there's 4 key sections that we use as an agency. So Active Profile is an integrated marketing and PR agency, and we work with and have worked with quite a few partners, specifically around their marketing proposition for Microsoft 365, Azure, etc. And we know that this approach is tried and tested and it works. We're recommending that if you're looking at your own go-to-market plan, this is this process you take. So we start off with strategy and insights, numbers 1, 2, and 3. So we look at setting those objectives and making sure that they're smart. So what exactly is it we're trying to achieve? Are we trying to generate 10 ebook downloads, 5 new business opportunities? Just making sure that they're really achievable and that we can really measure them. Then we look at who exactly it is we're going to talk to, and coming back to Sab's house analogy in terms of the finance people, the key decision makers, so the kind of the C-suite, MDs, that sort of stuff, but then also IT managers, service desk people, etc., who are going to actually kind of use things. We need to make sure that we're speaking to people in a way that is engaging to them. So it's just about identifying who they are. Then we put the plan together, which will show you how you can think of some more strategic, tactical elements that we can go through when we're doing that campaign. And there's a very, very basic template at the back of this deck, which just shows you what a very basic campaign plan might look like. Then we look at what the campaign messaging is in the campaign design and build stage. So we've got stages 4, 5, and 6. So we've identified that our key personas here, the key audiences we want to go after, are finance managers who hold the purse strings, IT managers who are physically using and are supporting end users with their 365 subscriptions and licensing. And then we might look at the CEO, MD, or the financial sales director who are ultimately going to sign off on the project. So how do we make sure that the messaging ticks each one of their pain points, challenges, and how do we just build that confidence and trust that actually the 365 business premium solution is right for them, but actually us as a partner, combining the two, that we can give them the trust and the confidence they need to take out that 500 user package with you. Then we look at the content that we need to create and making sure that it's content with purpose and with intent, rather than just content for the sake of creating content. So many businesses, within the channel and outside of the channel, just create blogs or create pages because they think they need to. How do we make sure that actually the content we are creating is with a purpose? So it ticks the boxes that the finance manager, IT manager, CEO, MD are trying to find information about. So it answers their pain points, answers their challenges, and it gives them that credibility and trust. So it might be the benefits of 365 as a solution, and we'll go through some more ways that we can widen that from a website point of view shortly. Then we do the physical build stage, so stage 6. So what does the website landing page look like? What does the physical social tile look like? If we're doing any hero content like an ebook or a report, we write that content, we get it designed, we do email templates, automation, all those sort of things. We physically go into the build stage. Then we hit section 3, the execution and optimization phase, which is where really we have to focus the most time and effort understanding the data in front of us. So understanding who is and who isn't engaging, what they're engaging with or what they're not engaging with, and just really understand and absorb and consume all the insights that we're presented with. So we go to market with 3 initial ads, for example. Which one is performing best? What's the engagement like? Why do we think that one's performing best? What can we do to make the other 2 better? And what can we learn from that better one? Then once the campaign's wrapped up, we go into the report and review stage. So stages 9 and 10. So stage 9, we look at the objective data. What are the leads? Who are they? What number of clicks did we get? How many impressions did we gain throughout the campaign? And we just look at the core objective data, which can't be disputed. Then we go into a review stage whenever we work with a client over longer periods of time, and we'll look at, okay, subjectively, what went well with the campaign? What did we really like? What did we long for? And what have we learned? So that next time when we do this activity again, we've addressed all the concerns, and it might be a case of within that review, well, marketing gave us loads of rubbish leads, and we say, okay, well, let's pick that a little bit. What was rubbish about them? They didn't answer the phone, they didn't respond to emails. Okay, well, maybe there's not a process with marketing here. Maybe it's the marketing and sales alignment that we need to address. Or it might be that they generally were rubbish. They were consumers, not businesses, which obviously we found that we can attract non-business leads through kind of PPC, and we need to put plans in place to address that. So we'd look at the objective and the subjective report and review stage there. So we're going to go into, has anyone got any questions on go-to-market strategy, anything like that before we progress? Obviously, we'll share the previous deck where you'll see all of that process mapped out, and Sabs will share the recording with you as well, where you can see and just hear and understand everything that I've gone through on a granular level with those. As I said, ask questions now or at the end is absolutely fine. Okay. So let's go into layering up the campaign then. From a basic point of view, the left-hand side from this section is really what you may go to market with if you're being a lot more tactical. You have a sales goal where you need to generate new business, you need to put things into the pipeline, and you're just being quite tactical with it. So you've got either a landing page or an existing website page. So you might have a Microsoft 365 page currently. How do we take that and just adapt it and extend it? You might have a single email template. You might have some organic social posts, whether that's in a schedule or whether you're just posting because you need to. You may have some case studies if we think about how we build trust and credibility with an audience. and you may be doing some sort of paid ads, whether that's across social media. So LinkedIn ads, for example, we know is really effective and engage in a very, very targeted B2B audience. And we covered that quite a bit yesterday. Or you may be looking at PPC, so responding to somebody's search intention. And that might be your basic campaign activity, whether that's in a plan or not. That is kind of the foundational stuff that we think, if we're doing any activity, they're the minimum things we need to include. So how do we take that from the right-hand side? So how do we add additional pages and just go from having one Microsoft 365 for business page to a security focus page to a productivity and collaboration page to one maybe about remote working or hybrid working? And then how do we have the benefits between basic, standard, premium? How do we start to pad that information out in a way that isn't just words on a page, but it's actually useful content if we think back to the content with intent that we spoke about earlier? Then we look at how we can automate a lot of these things. So actually, how do we remove manual human involvement and allow people to focus time on getting into the nitty gritty of the data? So actually understanding insights and learning from them and making changes. How do we automate some of that stuff so that we can gather data over time without having to be in it in the daily? Then we would look to include some retargeting. So somebody comes to our website for the first time, how do we bring them back and continue to bring them back with new or additional content to a way that they actually convert? And there's some stats further in this deck on how important retargeting is. How do we look at the SEO of our website? So how do we look at how we optimize it for search? And think about that on a more strategic, longer term approach. It's going to be so important that we do that. And then actually, what does that user journey look like? If we don't map it out, it's very difficult to understand at which touch point we should be serving information to people. Or actually, if we start engaging with people on social media, what is the journey we want them to take? How do we get them from being somebody who just reads a blog that we've posted through to being converted on a form, downloading a report, an ebook, or attending one of our webinars or anything like that? And ultimately, the importance of going from left to right is that the more channels we use effectively, the more chance we have to engage, the more chance we have to delight, and the more likely we are at getting somebody to convert on a number of call to actions we might want to engage them with. So by layering up, ultimately we do just evolve tactical bursts of activity. We evolve we need to do this, and not how often, people on the call might do it might say to members of staff within their teams, or you might have been told, we need to do some more stuff. We need to promote Microsoft 365, and we create a blog and we do a social post. We move away from just being really, really tactical, and we focus on being more strategic. So how do we generate that higher value opportunity, and how do we do it in a strategic way? So there's just a couple of different bullets there underneath of them, and we'll go through each section within this layering up presentation. So automation, how do we use email in an effective way? How do we trigger based on behavioural data? And we will start to capture behavioural data within any of the email marketing platforms we use. How do we use that in a strategic way, which doesn't just keep sending people information if they're not engaging, or doesn't keep sending everyone the same information depending on different levels of engagement? How do we look at behavioural analysis? So how do we use Microsoft Clarity, Hotjar, Mouseflow, your chosen behavioural analysis platform? How do we use that to gather rich and deep insights, and how do we then use that to improve and optimize our website pages, our landing pages, and ultimately optimize that user experience, which is going to hopefully start to convert people if we make the right tactical and strategic decisions? And then from an SEO point of view, how do we diversify our focus from just putting organic social posts out, from just spending lots and lots of money on PPC or on LinkedIn ads or on Twitter ads, or just emailing our existing audience and our existing database? How do we use SEO in a really strategic way that starts to generate really high value opportunities based on people's search intent? And again, there's some stats from an SEO point of view of just how important that is later on. And then lastly, the layering up is just the process of taking our campaign into new channels. So taking that basic plan and layering it up so that we can drive greater engagement, bring in new people who maybe aren't on our organic social channels, who aren't in our email database, and drive that engagement ultimately to look for results. So user journey mapping, and why is that important? We need to think about actually, how do people want to engage, and how do we want to engage them, and what will we do if they don't engage? So to kind of break that up, we put a social post out and we think everyone's going to click it. No one clicks it. We need to think about, okay, well, why haven't they clicked it? Is it informative? Is it engaging? On the flip side of that, they do click it, they go onto the website, but they don't fill in the form that we want them to fill in. Why haven't they filled that form in? Why haven't they downloaded the report? Why haven't they booked a demo or booked an inquiry? Discovery call. We need to think about what that journey is going to be. So for example, they come on, they click a social post, they come onto the website. Is that user journey consistent? If they're expecting to download an ebook, because that's what the social post says, and then we just direct them to the home page, and the first thing they see on the home page is view our case studies. It's a very inconsistent experience that we haven't mapped that journey effectively. It's not going to drive results, or if it does, it was by chance, and we're not going to get volume results. We need to think about all the touch points that we're going to hit. And when we do use multiple channels and messages, we really need to detail when and how someone should be engaged. So they see a social post, they come to the website is the website page, flows in a very, very simple but strategic way. So they come on, it might be a case study page that we've shared on social. They see the challenge that the clients had, they see how we helped them, and then they see the results. It tells a story. They're much more likely to then convert off the back of it. So it's just about how we map that journey out in a way that which is going to be engaging, but also effective for what we are trying to achieve. This is a very, very basic user journey mapping of how we might get someone to see an ad or change ads to organic social posts, and how we might use retargeting to bring them back. So if we start from the yellow box on the left, we've got a message that we're sharing across social, whether that's organic or paid. There's two options really from a journey point of view. They can either click it, at which point they'll visit a landing page or a website page, or they don't click it, at which point they're going to remain in our audience. So they're going to stay here with this red line is, and they're going to keep seeing ads for the duration of the campaign period. They're only going to move forward to the next stage when they click. So once we get them to the landing page, we can obviously use Hotjar to monitor behaviors and make optimizations, and we'll cover some of that later on. But there's two actions they can do here, or in terms of our journey, they can complete the form or they can not complete the form. If they complete the form, we should remove them from the ads audience. They're probably falling into a sales process at this point. So they're probably triggering an email to the sales manager or to a BDM or to a customer success manager or whatever your terminology is. So that's what they're going left. If they visit the landing page and don't complete the form, they should go back into a retargeting process. And we can either put them back into the initial ad audience, or we can put them into something a bit more strategic and tactical, where we focus on, okay, you came in on message one. How do we then start giving you message two? Because we get message one is, it resonates with you, but you're probably not going to click it again. We need to serve you an additional message, taking you possibly to another landing page or to a case study. How do we start to serve these different ads to bring you back in a way that's going to add value? Because if we just keep showing you the same ad over and over again, and you've already seen the landing page and you weren't convinced the first time, we're not going to drive any value. We're not going to drive any opportunity. We need to think about what that is strategically. Does the user journey mapping make sense? Does anyone have any questions at this point? No? Okay. So why is automation so important then? I mean, ultimately, it's a cost saving. It's a cost incurring cost to get the automation set up. You're going to have to invest in a platform, but actually the benefits far outweigh the cost. If we can remove manual element, we can give people a very, very consistent user experience. Thinking back to the user journey, we can just make sure everyone receives the same thing. We can be very, very personalized based on the data that we've got available. And to caveat, that is so important. We need to have that data in our CRM, in our email marketing platform in order to do that. But if we do have it, we can start to engage and trigger based on that. And we can also speed up sales processes by removing the requirement for a sales associate or anything like that to, on a weekly basis, follow up. And we might just look like we're spamming someone because we're just saying, are you interested? Are you interested? Are you interested? Actually, if we start to use automation to serve content based on engagement, and only when they get to a certain point that we start to then serve the next message, we can just start to give people information that's relevant for them at the time that they're currently in, whether they're close to buying, not close to buying. If you think about the funnel, which we'll cover this afternoon in that session about full funnel campaigns, awareness, consideration, decision, we need to serve people content, what's relevant for them. And in terms of when automation should be used, our advice would be, if you have the expertise and the technology that in your business already, we should always be automating. Even if we're only doing kind of 2 or 3 touch points, we should always automate and learn what people are engaging with the most. It removes the need for day-to-day involvement, and it allows for consistent experiences that should be rather than inconsistent, but it almost always delays the sales process when there's no automation involved. We just need to be really, really strategic and structured in what we're trying to do. So in terms of how we can trigger, there's just 3 different examples here, but there are an abundance of different ways depending on what data you've got available. The more sophisticated your CRM system is, the more data you'll have available to you. So just kind of 3 of the very, very common ways that you can trigger is based on an interaction. So somebody submits a form on your website. It might be to download an infographic that you just created around Business Premium. It might be a report, it might be an ebook, it might be webinar sign up, anything like that. We can trigger based on that. We can trigger based on criteria if we know that information in our CRM. So are they an existing Microsoft 365 Business Premium customer? If they are, we might not put them into a trigger, or we might put them into a referral or retention workflow. If they're not an existing Business Premium customer, we might start to share them information around the importance and the benefits of Business Premium, thinking about the various different solutions that they can access, thinking about the benefits, case studies, etc. And then also from a workflow engagement. So we bring them in maybe through an interaction or through criteria, i.e. if someone opens an email, we can send them one way. If they click a link, we can send them some different comms. Or if they don't engage at all, we can start to engage with them in different ways and start to think about, okay, why is it that they're not engaging? How do we then serve them more effective or more relevant pieces of content? So we've just got, over the next couple of slides, just some very, very basic workflows. So starting very from scratch, we've got a 41-day series here that we've mapped out. Obviously, really, really generic. Email 1, based on somebody downloading a form or somebody is or is not an existing customer. We send them email 1, we leave it a delay, send them a second, leave it a delay, and we get through the remainder of the workflow up to email 9. You can completely determine what that delay is. We'd usually suggest somewhere between kind of 3 and 5 working days, but depending on how much content you have available, you might want to stagger it to 8 days to 10 days. And depending on your CRM system, you may be able to only share on weekdays. You may only be able to share on days between certain times. And it's just important that we start to factor and test all of these different things. So what might that actually look like? If we think about somebody who's downloaded an ebook, email 1 on day 1 might just be a thank you for downloading. Just in case you lose the copy, here's the link where you can access it at any time. We leave a delay of 5 days. Then email 2 hits them with an email which is just about a very, very top level about Microsoft 365 for Business. Just talks about some of the benefits, talks about maybe there's a quote in there from a customer who's used it really, really well and who's benefited a lot from it. Email 3, another 5 days, talks about how we can really enhance security with Microsoft 365 Business Premium. And we start to just give bite-sized bits of information. Obviously, within each of these emails, we'd look to have a link to a website page where they can find more information, where we've got a form in case they're ready to convert. And then email 4, we might bring in a case study example, whether that's one of ours or whether it's one of Microsoft's, which talks about how business A improves security through Business Premium. Email 5, again, another 5 days later, might be around a webinar we are hosting or a webinar Microsoft is hosting that we can jump on the back of, just to build that awareness, confidence, and trust in Microsoft 365 for Business and Business Premium and solutions. Email 6, we might do a business benefit focus on the difference between basic and premium, and just start to really help people understand the value that they're going to derive from that premium license over something a lot more basic. Email 7 might be around the ROI that businesses can achieve from Business Premium, whether that's, again, stats that are available through Microsoft's website, or that's stats that we've gathered ourselves based on 10, 12, 15, 20 customers of our own talking to us about the benefits. So we might say, actually, from a productivity point of view, our customers achieve an ROI saving of X per year, or £2 to the return to the pound. Then email 8, another 5 days later, might be how we specifically have helped another business mitigate security risks as a result of working from home. And you could change that working from home to any of the pain points or challenges that we've identified are being seen by our customers and prospects, making just feel really relevant, really personalized, and really on target in terms of who we're trying to engage. And then email 9, day 41, we're pushing them for a free trial or pushing them for a discovery call. We've hopefully given them enough information through this journey where at email 9, they're in a position to take us up on the offer, essentially. But by having links in each of these emails and by having forms on each of these pages, we hopefully will start to gather leads through each of them. So we might end up actually on email 2, we might get our first lead because we've thought about the user journey, we've mapped that out in an effective way, and our website pages link effectively between each other. But ultimately, we're driving people to email 9, where they're going to take us up on a free trial. But by optimizing and reviewing open rates and click rates and A/B testing subject lines and body copy, we'll hopefully start to get some inquiries earlier on. And this is a very, very basic email here based on, as I mentioned, around the workflow engagement. If someone opens, clicks, or actually if someone doesn't open an email, it's important that we need to think about these people in a really strategic but also tactful way. So everybody might get email 1, and there might be a list of existing or prospect customers. We will always leave it a delay before we look at any data. So we might say, okay, let's leave it 3 days, and then let's look at, has someone opened it? Has someone opened and clicked? And if someone hasn't opened, how might we treat them differently? Rather than just sending everybody email 2, if they haven't opened email 1 to begin with, and we then send email 2 and they've been on leave, for example, we might just put them off by looking like we're spamming them. So actually, if after 3 days they haven't opened, we might send them the same email, or we might leave it a further delay, but we might just change the subject line because actually our subject wasn't that strong. We didn't get any leads off the back of it. And we think that actually, rather than focusing on us, we might put the challenge or the pain point in the subject, and then we might leave it another 3 days, and let's just see how that engages. But similarly, if they've opened and didn't click, they might get email 2. If they've opened and clicked, obviously they've engaged the most. We send them another variant, and then email 2, A, B, and C would just be slightly tweaked versions based on what we understand about them. So email 2A might be obviously less convincing because they haven't clicked it. Email 2B might start to use information around, what did you think about the blog we posted, because we know they've clicked it. Whereas email 2 might be, sorry you didn't engage with this blog. What about this one instead? Obviously, we wouldn't write those words, but you start to understand how we can engage. And then if someone hasn't opened at all, we just take out that assumption and we start to really roll back the copy within there in email 2C. They may all be the same focus. They might all be around thinking back to this, enhanced security, if you think about email 3, or so email 2A and 2B might be about enhanced security. Email 2C might be back to the previous step, just with a different angle around the business benefits of Microsoft 365. Obviously, we need to completely map this out, but I think it's important that we do engage people in a way that is relevant to them based on how they've engaged with us. Otherwise, we're not being personalised, we're not taking into consideration their experience and their journey with us, and we're not going to drive the level of results and success that we want to, because we're just treating everyone in a one-size-fits-all approach, and that's just not how people want to be engaged anymore. And then there's just a selection of some of the more enterprise level and more commonly used automation tools. You may use one, or you may have used multiples in the past. Obviously, we've got Dynamics in the mix from an effective marketing tool, just some of the different ones that you may use to execute. As I said earlier, we've just started to filter some stats through this presentation just to give you a flavour of benchmark data. So actually you can go back and think, we sent an email recently, the open rate was 20%, and just start to understand how your emails are performing against others. But the average email open rate is for B2B is 17.92%. Obviously, that will be based on existing audiences, but also prospects. If you're typically, if you are engaging an existing customer base, you're probably expecting to see 45% opens. This would obviously be a mixed blend of that. But as you're doing more proactive work to engage a new audience, that's really the benchmark that you should be looking at, and making changes to subject lines, copy, making sure you link into the right sections to drive that engagement. And then just another really interesting stat about the importance it is that we capture attention as soon as someone opens an email. That's not just the subject line is engaging, but also the header image we've used, or the headline, or the provocative question we're asking. The average person spends just 1.1 second scanning the email before they even understand whether they're going to continue reading it fully. So it's just about focusing on what's the message we want to say. Is it short, snappy? Is it going to engage someone? Is it going to get them to click a link? If it's not, let's do multiple variants and let's test it. A/B testing is so important and so focused, and yeah, so important. And it's so important that we stay focused here, especially if we're doing any level of automation where 1.1 seconds could be the difference between an inquiry at email 9 or a couple of pence wasted to send that email. So it's just important that we consider all these stats. I know there's been a lot of chatter in the chat box, which is obviously great. I think it's really good that you're having a conversation. We can pick up some of these points at the end. Does anyone have any questions around emails or automation before I go on?
I was going to say, all the chat is really positive about you, so you might want it to continue.
Great. Well, as I said, we can take questions at the end, or you reach out to Sabs or myself at the end as well. And we're more than happy to answer any questions. So we think about retargeting then. Retargeting is so important because we can re-engage an interested or intrigued audience. There's a level of interest, and we can gauge that by the fact that somebody's clicked our email link, they've clicked our organic social post, they've clicked our paid ad post. If they've clicked there to get to in the first point, how do we take that initial interest and how do we convert it into an inquiry, into a demo, into a free trial, into a discovery call? Retargeting will help us do that. Cost benefits are always positive. It's generally lower cost to engage somebody from a retargeting point of view than it is to get that initial acquired click. It's the same as the argument that it costs less to retain a customer than it does to generate a new one. It's the same sort of mentality. We've got the interest. It costs less to keep engaging that person than it does to go and find someone new every time. We can serve additional messages, challenges, and pain points. Obviously, if we've done the work up front to really understand our target audience personas and the messaging that's going to relate to them. So we're serving a finance message to a finance manager, and we're not serving a really technical message to that audience. If we're serving the relevant things, we're going to be able to drive engagement through retargeting. The average sales cycle to acquire a new prospect actually requires over 25 engagements. I think it's about 27, 28 in a recent Adobe report about a year ago. So we just need to think about constantly getting in front of somebody. So that might be a social post they see, it might be an email, it might be they see us in a search results page for something that they've searched. It might be that they've seen an ad. We need to be getting in front of these people on regular occasions. If they've clicked onto our website, they're that one step closer to that 25 number or even less if the messaging's right. So that's why retargeting is just so important. If we were to do 25 engagements or touch points with an initially acquired click, it's going to be a lot more expensive. So how do we start to use retargeting to engage and keep the costs down? And we can actually engage people on platforms where the initial acquisition targeting is less focused. If we think about LinkedIn, for example, and we did a deep dive on this yesterday, on LinkedIn, it's probably the only really effective targeting platform where we can look at company, we can search people by company name if we have the company name. If you've got a list of target companies, we can focus on job titles, seniority, sector, company size, the target, and let us get in front of exactly the sort of people that we want to engage. So if you are a construction focused IT partner and you want to go after more construction companies, LinkedIn will allow us to drive a construction message with a construction ROI calculation to that audience in a really focused way. Whereas Twitter, Microsoft ads, anything like that, we have to be a lot more generic. We just can't drive that very, very clear targeting. Retargeting, on the other hand, though, will allow us to start to engage these people in Twitter, Facebook, display, any other mode of advertising, in essence, because we're using tracking pixels and we can start to follow their journey across all the websites. So how many times have you gone onto Amazon or ASOS or anywhere else, looked at a product, and then it's followed you around the internet? Retargeting works in essentially the same process, where you are added to a focused audience, and then we just follow you around, and that each time you see that ad, it's adding into that 25, 26, 27 number. So it just helps us to bring people back. And then just importantly, obviously typical conversion rates for websites can be 3, 4, 5%, but actually only 2% of first-time visitors convert the first time they come to us, which is why retargeting is just so important. We need to keep bringing them back and building that trust and credibility. Retargeting results in 70% and in a 70% improved chance of converting visitors into buyers. If they visit your website once, again, that magic 25 number, they're not building the credibility and trust in your business that they need to. Retargeting will help them do that. As long as we're not just serving the same message over and over again, we're bringing in different case studies, we're bringing in different quotes, we're starting to use different formats, we're using images, video, we're launching on infographics. We can just start to really drive engagement, and retargeting will help us do that. And then specific to LinkedIn, ads published on LinkedIn have a 30% larger click-through rate compared to other social media. It's a business platform, probably no surprise in there, but we can be very, very focused from an initial click, but then on a retargeting point of view. And obviously retargeting just helps keep the costs down as well. Into a behavioral analysis point of view, and we've got quite a lot of detail to go through here, but I think it's so important. And we've worked with probably 20, 25, 30 Microsoft partners to date since we've been working with tech data, and very few are properly using behavioral analysis to drive traffic, to drive inquiries. So we've just got some really tactical tips to go through. No worries, Keith, thanks for joining. Yeah, Sabs will share the deck and she'll also share the recording as well, so you've got a copy. Behavioral analysis helps us to test our user journey assumptions. So we create a new website, for example. We think people are going to engage with it a certain way, but actually they don't. They engage with it so different. If we're not monitoring the likes of Microsoft Clarity, Hotjar, Mouseflow, we're not understanding that. All we're seeing is 1,000 people enter the website each month and we only get one conversion. Well, actually a 0.1, 0.01, whichever, my maths is not great, whatever that percentage is, it's not a great conversion rate based on benchmark. By making optimizations and small tweaks and changes to our website through this monitoring, we can just drive engagement, we can drive conversion. So it helps us understand how people interact. Are they seeing or clicking our primary call to actions in the way that we intended to? We can make enhancements and we can just gain rich insights. We can start to gain both qualitative and quantitative data by these reviews. So Hotjar is just one of the more popular and kind of longer standing solutions that we can use for this. There is a free version as well. Microsoft Clarity, fairly new product on the market. Again, with a free version, offers the same sort of experience, just a little bit less developed at the moment, but definitely something that you should look at in terms of doing this exercise yourself. You can see here a recording or a still from a recording within Hotjar. The red lines everywhere is just how someone's mouse has moved across the page. So you can see they've visited the red button, they've visited and scrolled over the contact navigation. I can't see what the 1, 2 to the left of that is, but you can start to see where their mouse has navigated, and you can start to see that actually this person has been on this website for 12 minutes. So they've probably gone across multiple different pages, and we can see where they try and click. So the yellow circle across the mouse cursor there on the left hand side of the screenshot, that shows where somebody's looked to click. If they're trying to click somewhere and it's not actually a button, we can start to understand that our audience thinks this is a button. What can we do to make this process more streamlined and make it more relevant and useful for this person? So if they're clicking something which might be value added, so it might be specific to the business benefits of Microsoft 365 Business Premium, for example, and then we notice that 4 other people amongst the same time period have tried to do the same, there's something we can learn from this data, and we actually might add a hyperlink which leads to another page on the website or leads to the benefits infographic we just created, and we can start to make optimizations off the back of that. Just by looking at these recordings, it just gives us so much richer data than we've ever had. Second useful element of Hotjar, Microsoft Clarity, etc., is the heat mapping. So you can see here, there's the red dots surrounded by orange, yellow, turquoise, and then blue. The darker and the redder the radius, the more it's clicked. So we can just understand from a very, very top level quantitative data point of view, what are the most clicked sections on our website, which then tells us the most popular pages. How do we then start to make changes to our website to improve or to optimize what people are clicking? If, for example, the smaller blue and turquoise blob is our primary call to action, but actually people are clicking view the team, we might just need to rejig this page because we're distracting from our primary focus here is to drive lead generation. Actually, what we're driving here is people clicking our team, and that's not what we want to gain from this page. We really want people to click the book a discovery call, book a meeting, so we can start to gain from a qualitative point of view and a quantitative point of view how useful these sort of tools are. And then this screenshot here is probably lesser used, but it's still fairly important. It just shows us how long people stay on a page and how far they scroll. So you can see obviously the red section, absolutely everybody is probably likely to see. And then as it gets more orange, amber, yellow into the blues, less people are seeing these sections. So it just starts to help us show, okay, what is in those most viewed sections? Is that the information we want people to see? Or is our important stuff hidden kind of towards the bottom of the page? Let's rejig this structure. Let's bring some of that bottom information right to the top. And then let's start to monitor the user journey in the Hotjar recordings and the heat maps off the back of that as well. Because actually, if we're hiding our key case studies and we're hiding our stats, our Trustpilot reviews and that sort of stuff, we're hiding them near the bottom, but actually we want people to see them, we need to move them to the top of the fold. Some of the common optimizations people make then as a result of watching the recordings, seeing the heat maps and looking at the scroll is just that by adding forms to pages, we can just give a really clear way for people to convert and get in touch. Anchor links, post sections help us to encourage people to move between the page in a way that's going to drive them towards a conversion. We often find that people are clicking sections where there's no link, no button, but we could add one and we could just help to enhance that experience. We often find that when someone comes onto a page, they tend to click the headline or the H1 title text, when actually it's not a link. How do we address that? We either change the sizing of it if we don't want them to click it, or we add a link which is going to jump to another section, maybe about benefits, maybe to a form. We can start to make changes based on that. And if we're finding that large quantities of our visitors are landing on a page, scrolling right to the bottom and leaving, it tells us that there's something missing from that page. So how do we start to test what that might be? How do we start to add in relevant information and just be a bit more focused, and add in benefits, add in images? Can we bring any product demos in, any videos? Obviously, I think the beauty of being partners of Microsoft is there's so much content that exists, which we can probably just embed in pages. So overviews of Business Premium, for example, overviews of the security benefits that you can get as part of Microsoft 365 Business. We can start to bring these videos in and just build that trust and confidence. And then importantly, thinking about this section here, but also thinking about your own website, 50% of page views take place above the fold, which suggests that 43% of visitors never go past what you can see at the bottom of your laptop or your desktop. So if your important calls to actions are below that section, we need to rejig and bring that information to the top of the page. Otherwise, we're just going to miss 43 out of 100 page visits. We just need to make the user journey really quick, really easy, and just do whatever we can to drive that conversion. I know it might not necessarily always look as nice as you want it to if you've got a really long image, but actually we shouldn't be designing a website based on what we want. We should be designing a website based on how people want to engage. And we know from the extensive campaigns and work we've done with the IT audience from an end user point of view, IT decision makers are busy. They want the information they need. They want it quick. They want to convert, and then they want to follow up offline. They want to have a phone call or a call. They don't want to spend days, weeks, months looking at lots of different options and lots of different bits of information. So into the SEO section of this presentation, we've got quite a lot of information here. I've tried to keep it really top level, and if anyone came to any of the session that we did pre-Christmas, a lot of the content is the same here. But I just wanted to focus on really SEO as an opportunity and why it should be in that next layer of your campaign plan. It's free. It drives quality leads for those businesses who are seen in search positions. So we call it SERPs, search engine result pages. It is technically free, obviously requires the effort to optimize, to create new content. But ultimately, if you're doing a campaign over a longer period of time, it's really, really important that SEO is part of that plan. Unlike if you're doing a event promotion in 2 weeks' time, it's very unlikely you're going to have enough time to optimize that page. So let's focus on the more strategic activities you're doing, i.e., if you're launching your proposition for Microsoft 365 for business and you're focused on Business Premium, let's absolutely optimize that page for that success. So just very, very back to basics, some SEO definitions. SEO stands for search engine optimization. A keyword is the physical term someone searches. Keyword rankings are your position within a SERP, and then your SERP is the search engine results page. And this is a really, really interesting stat, which is why I wanted to include it. So 91% of all website content never gets any organic traffic because people create a blog, they create a website, but they don't put in the effort to optimize. They don't put in the time and resource to sort out metadata and do all the internal linking and to do the alt tags. So it's just important that that optimization process is just fed in. And we've seen from so many clients that we've worked in the past where they launch a swanky new website, but during that process, no one's considered the redirects that need to take place. No one's considered the SEO work that needs to be put in to keep that traffic coming. So how does it work? Ultimately, search engine bots crawl your website. The bigger your website, the more room they have to move. And put that into an example. Think about this as a very, very basic 7-page website. You've got a home page, about, contact, etc. We're only having 7 pages. There's not a lot of room for a spider or a bot to move. So it's very unlikely you're ever going to reach the first page of a search result. Think about this example, for example. You've got those 7 pages, but then you've got lots and lots of sub pages, lots of more opportunities to create engaging content, to optimize pages, to add in alt tags and internal links. It just gives us a lot more room to move. So if you look at all the different arrows, if you think about a bot comes onto your homepage and you've got 70 other pages that you can link to from that page, it's then 70 pages that then have 70 links that then have 70 links. And because the bot will crawl them all over a period of time, it will constantly keep coming back to see if they've been updated so that it can update your search ranking position. So I'm not saying for any second here that we should just start creating thousands and thousands of pages, because it's got to be quality content. But if it is quality and if it does feed back to the challenges and pain points of your audience, we're going to just start to drive some really, really good organic search impressions, clicks, and then over time, you're then more likely to reach that first page of Google, Bing, whichever your chosen search engine is, or that of your end user. So ultimately, they look for updates that the algorithms can be updated. Regular content is key, but it's got to be quality. Bots are sophisticated, so these spider bots are sophisticated, and they will understand when page is created for the sake of it. If you're just creating carbon copies of the Microsoft website and you're just lifting word for word, they will know that that's come from the Microsoft website and you'll be penalized as a result. You've got to make sure that each page that you have in your website is different enough, whether that's rechanging sentence structures, rechanging structures of page in terms of bringing case studies up. But again, we'll start to understand what we need to do based on the Microsoft Clarity Hotjar insights that we're gathering. And then just in terms of how we would put together that SEO plan and how we would know what keywords to use and that sort of stuff, there's Google Trends is a really good way to spot emerging trends. So we've put in Microsoft 365 at the top here, and you can see the interest over time. The 100 line, the top left red box, is when it peaked as a search term. So it looks somewhere around probably December, January 2021. December 2020, January 2021 is when it had the most search terms that it's ever had. You can see towards the back end of last year, it's hovering somewhere between kind of 70 to 75% of that interest. But then we can just look at the interest by sub-region. So within the UK, it's a lot more searched in England, less of a search term in Wales. And then at the bottom, we can just look at some related queries and how they're changing over time. So whilst Microsoft 365 as a general term is declining, the Microsoft 365 Business Standard, Forms, obviously family is not really something we'd want to look at, neither is login, but you can start to kind of click between these things. And if I was to click Business Standard, it would show me a similar page. The search term would just be Business Standard. So it helps us inform our search plans, identify new less competitive keywords maybe, and then just look at related trends that are on the increase. So if Microsoft 365 Business Premium, for example, is peaking now at 100, we really need to be capitalizing on that and tweaking our website copy to be focused on that. Then we've just got a more traditional keyword research function, so we can use Google Ads or we can use Microsoft Ads for this. We can put in a search term, put in a website landing page if we've got one, and then it will just give us a load of opportunities based on that. So just helping you digest this information. We've got all the keyword ideas on the left next to the red columns. We've got the average number of searches, and then we've got what the monthly change is for Google. Microsoft doesn't give it to us, but we can just see the competition as well. Competition can either be high, medium, or low. Low competition does what it says on the tin, really. There's not a lot of it. It's a good opportunity for you to be optimizing your websites and going for those keywords, whereas those with a high competition are a lot more difficult. They're a lot more expensive from a paid PPC point of view, but they're a lot more difficult as well from an organic element. So if you're starting off with an SEO plan for the first time, let's focus on those low volume keywords. And that's where we're going to drive the greatest short-term success. If we think about how we build brand and demand over time, brand will take obviously a lot longer. We can drive small scale amounts of demand by focusing on those low keywords. When we start to make good progress, then we can start going from low to medium, medium to high. So in terms of how we build out the website, there's just a very, very quick way of how you could execute that. So if you've currently got a Microsoft 365 service overview page, you could quite easily, obviously writing the content, take that to an overview page with 5 different ways you can come off it. So within that, you could do a overview page on business standard and premium all in one. If you feel like you've got enough content, you could split them out. So you could then have a business basic page, a standard page, or a premium page. You could then do a product page which talked about the tools that you can unlock as part of Microsoft 365. So the Office 365 suite, Teams, SharePoint, OneDrive, all those sort of stuff. You can start to have that if you've got enough content. You can have blogs, you could have downloadable resources with data capture forms. We can start to capture interest, start to capture leads, and you can also have case studies as well. So just hopefully, yeah, if you've just got a service page at the moment, you can start to look at, okay, actually, I get how I can extend this now. I get how I can start to build out the website and optimize these pages to start getting a greater share of search traffic. And then these are just what a SERP example looks like. So if I was to search Microsoft 365 for business, this is what some of the search engine results would look like across Google and across Bing, just to give you a flavor of what that looks like. And in terms of the top 10 rankings, on the left-hand side with the Google example, there's what results 1, 2, and 3. So what, sorry, 1, 2, 3, and 4 look like. Within a page, traditionally you can get 10. I know Google is extending that currently so that you page scrolls. So you won't necessarily see 1 to 10 on a page, then 11 to 20. You'll start to see it on a never-ending scrolling basis. But ultimately, top stages 1 to 10 are where people are getting the traffic. Position 1 gets around a third of all traffic, and then it's generally split between the rest. And then these are the metrics that matter when it comes to SEO, when it comes to reviewing progress, impressions, the number of times you've appeared in a search engine result, clicks, the number of times people click, click-through rate, average position, should be terms you're probably quite familiar with at this moment in time anyway. But they're the metrics that we would look to monitor. Obviously, the next layer below that is, okay, what leads, what inquiries, what form submissions have these driven? But they're the top level metrics that we would use to monitor progress. The common pitfalls people have are insufficient metadata. So if you have a WordPress website, for example, and you haven't done any internal work yourself to optimize those pages, your page meta titles and meta description, your meta description is probably empty, and your meta title is probably just the page name. So about or case studies or anything like that, whereas we can be really optimizing those titles to be relevant to what we're trying to go after. So rather than Microsoft 365, you might title your page Microsoft 365 for business, which is a business specific keyword, and just start to make gains that way. The URL structure is really important. What we title images in terms of file names is really important. So rather than having event photo.jpg, if you had Microsoft 365 event photo, we're starting to pull in some optimized efforts around the Microsoft 365 search term. And then alt text, purely from a usability point of view, search engines are really, really focusing on alt text, and just by optimizing hyperlinks and optimizing image text, we can really make some quick win progress from an SEO point of view. Then there's just some top level information about what meta titles and descriptions are. So you can have up to 60 characters for meta title, and then there's just an example of what that meta title might be. And then from a meta description point of view, slightly longer, you can have up to 160 characters, but just try and write in sentences so it feels authentic, it feels relevant. And there's just an example of what your meta description could be. Microsoft 365 is the ultimate business productivity tool for businesses, includes, and then just some of the Office 365 suite. We'll just start to help you tick off Microsoft 365 for business and some of those business related search terms that people are searching for. And then just a slide around how to optimize an image. Do you want to attract visits from people searching for Microsoft 365 or image 001? It sounds really silly. It sounds really straightforward as well, but so many people don't consider it. Obviously, image searches continue to be on the upwards trend. Really, really important that we're optimizing everything because every single optimization we're going to make, file names, metadata, alt tags, links, everything like that. It's all just going to start to give us points towards getting to that Google or Microsoft page 1. And then these go-to-market examples are just what we went through yesterday. So just in terms of how you bring your Microsoft 365 Business Premium proposition to life, just some visual examples that we've mocked up. So what an email might look like, what a landing page might look like. So some social tiles there, which bring in some of the stats that end user businesses might not be aware of. So 60% of small businesses don't feel prepared for a cyber attack. Eradicate risk with Microsoft 365. Find out more. Click back to the website where hopefully we've got this information, but a lot more as well. We can bring in case studies and some of the stuff we've spoken about further up, and then just some more text-based ones. So stay in control of security wherever your teams are. More of an IT manager focus or CEO could be relevant. Obviously, that sort of messaging is not really relevant for a finance audience. We'd probably look at save money with Microsoft 365 Business Premium. Thinking back to Sab's slide very early on, that you can make significant financial savings if you consolidate the likes of Slack, Zoom, etc., all into one really, really effective set of tools. If we were to do an ebook, just a mock-up of what the title might be. So future-proofed business security today, how to protect against emerging and future threats. Very, very clear what the content's going to be within that doc. So just shows you how that might look like. And then if we did a video as well, how we can just bring to life our proposition and our expertise, build that trust, bring that credibility through the use of video. So the title for this would be 5 Ways Microsoft Business Premium Can Keep Your Business Safe at Night. And then we've got somebody within our business who might be well known in the industry or might be really confident about talking in front of a camera, or at least confident about the subject matter, talking, and we've just got some subtitles over the top. So in the modern day, you can't take your eye off for a second, and that's why Business Premium is so valuable. It is that eye. If we're thinking about how we can give businesses trust that actually they can go to bed at night and feel confident, we just start to bring through those messages through there. Obviously, just completely placeholder text. You will have your own challenges, pain points that you think you can overcome from the experiences you've had. And then lastly, I think it's just some display ads that we could use if we're thinking about retargeting, or if we're thinking about how we go after people who are searching specific things, protect your business from the unexpected. Are you ready to take your IT security to the next level? Security focused messaging that we could use. Quite simple, quite a basic design, but quite impactful. It's going to really stand out on a very, very white page. So you're just going to start to hopefully get clicks if we're going after the right audience. Lastly, you'll be pleased to know for my section, we've just got some templates that we went through yesterday. So a very, very basic campaign plan template about who's the owner, what it is we're trying to achieve. So 25 ebook downloads, 5 net new opportunities. We're trying to increase web traffic by 200%, for example. Obviously, we want to make those objectives achievable, measurable, and we want to be data-driven with those if we can. So last time we did this activity, if we've done it, did we get 25 ebooks? What are we doing differently this time, which makes us think we're going to get an uplift? If we've never done it before, do we revise that figure back? Do we take 5 down to 2, for example? Or do we look at, on the right-hand side, actually, what is the cost to us? What do we need the ROI to be? And then that can then be our objective. What are our KPIs? So what are the things we're going to measure? How are we going to know if this has been a success? So impressions, clicks, downloads, email opens, for example. In the middle section, we've got just very, very basic channel mix. So what are the channels we're going to use? Obviously, some of the stuff we've gone through here, we could use email automation. We could bring all that into here. We could do retargeting. So we can just completely extend this channel list. And then what are the milestones that we are going after? So plan is signed off today. What are the steps we need to do? How are we going to make sure that this plan is enacted on time? Ultimately, project owner is then responsible for making that happen. And then which the last template we've got in here is just around the campaign review template that we use here at Active Profile. And if we've worked with you on any campaigns, this is the sort of process we've taken. So we'll do a review every 3, 5, 7 days, a more formal one. We'll be into the data daily, just making sure everything's okay. And then we'll be looking at, okay, what insights have we gauged? So for example, LinkedIn, what we've seen is the most engaged job titles are these 3. Okay, yep, they're on target. We're getting in front of the right people. What are our next steps? Okay, well, our most engaged sectors are automotive and healthcare. We think actually the opportunity for us isn't healthcare, so we're going to focus on automotive. How do we be more really personalized, and how do we be more specific to this audience? Let's just text some sector ads. So let's focus on pictures of cars, pictures of anything that we think is going to be a lot more relevant. And how do we bring in that sort of messaging into the copy as well? So, you know, we have experience dealing with IT managers in the automotive industry. If you're looking at finding a new IT partner, why don't you get in touch? Those sort of messages. If we go to the very bottom section around Hotjar, what we might find is actually visitors are coming to the page in mass. Quite a lot of them are getting to the form, just filling in most of it, but when it's asked for the phone number, they're leaving the page and we're not capturing any of that data. We're not getting a full submission. So actually the next steps that we might take there are we're going to take that we're going to take that required field off the form. And if they don't want to give us a phone number, we're still going to capture an email address. We've still got something we can follow up on. We still learn their name. We can then reach out on LinkedIn. We can start to engage with them in different ways. I think we've pushed back quite a few times around partners who are adamant that phone numbers need to be gauged, but actually when we've A/B tested, we gather so much more data by either removing it from the form or making it optional, not required. We can get kind of 2-3 times as many leads in some instances, just because people just are a bit skeptical about giving phone numbers, especially when they're working from home, just because they're worried about being harassed. Whereas actually we can still have a meaningful conversation over email. We can put them into our automated workflows if we've got one, and we can still drive engagement in that way. And then lastly from me is just some of the process that we take in terms of how we review campaign activity, and just some tips for you if you're going to do it yourselves. So we would always look at the data. What does the data say? How many impressions, clicks, leads? Who have we been in front of? What do our recordings and heat maps say? Then we look at, okay, what does this actually tell us? So based on the impressions and clicks and the click-through rate, which message has performed best, which has performed worst, why do we think that has, and what do we think we need to do to improve it? You know, which subject lines are the most engaging, and are there consistent page sections where people are leaving our website? Is it the form? Is it they're not getting past 57% of the page, not getting past the fold? We need to bring more useful information up to get their intrigue, to get them to extend the page scroll. And then ultimately, what do we need to do off the back of it? If it's underperforming, so if it's the worst performing ad or the worst performing social image, we need to do something differently. We need to change it. We need to test something else. And just the importance of really constant evolution when it comes to testing. Even if things are going well, good can always be improved, and we would never rest on our laurels. Whenever we're doing something, we'll always look at, okay, how do we make great amazing? Because ultimately, from going from a 10-15% increase in clicks or click-through rate could be the difference between 1 lead being 4 leads or anything like that. And then just a couple of different things you can test around messaging, copy length, imagery, channels, ad types, that sort of stuff. I think Sabs is bored of hearing from me. She's entered the arena, so you'll be pleased to know that that's the end of my slides. Hopefully that was useful.
No, I think I found it very useful. I can hear myself though. Right, so that is the end of today's session. So in terms of next steps, so anyone that attended the technical session from your companies, we would have reached out to them. We're going to be providing 2 Microsoft exam vouchers to go towards security certifications. All of the content that's been today, also the content we did tomorrow and later on today, because as we said, there's 3 sessions. We're going to have a go-to-market guide that's going to include all of that we're going to give you all as a keepsake to refer back to help you obviously build out your own campaigns. But we also have a pot of money where we would like to support you guys with your go-to-market for building out these managed services, obviously from what you've seen on this course. So what we're asking you to do is to put together a go-to-market plan to present to Tech Data in July to win a portion of that money. Obviously, if everyone's plan is amazing, we can definitely look to increase that funding. That was just the initial funding that we had put towards this. Nathan will be in this afternoon session. Again, this is building on this even further. So if anybody wants to be included in that, obviously drop me an email, but we will be having all of these recorded, and you will get all 3 session recordings. And any templates that he shares obviously later, again, you won't be at a disadvantage. We'll make sure that you get all of the templates as well. So I really hope you found this useful. I know there was some really positive messages in the chat, so thank you very much for that. If you have any questions, obviously for myself or Nathan, you can ask now, or we can obviously follow up with you afterwards. So just next slide, just our contact information. So as I said,